Morning, sir.
Morning, good morning.
Sir.
Good morning.
I think you are able to see.
Well, yes, very much.
Okay.
Thank you for the namaste.
Sir.
Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we are able to hear.
Okay. Is the audio okay?
Audio okay, sir. Good morning, all the participants and attendees. We are honored to organize a webinar on our former Prime Minister of India, Shri P.V. Narasimha Garu, on his birth centenary celebrations. Today, our topic is Reinventing India, Shri P.V. Narasimha's role in affecting change with stability. We are happy today. We are having two very distinguished panelists with us. I would like to give you very brief credentials about them. Now, if we look at the brief credentials of one of our panelists, Sri Commodore C. Uday Bhaskar. Commodore Sri Uday Bhaskar presently is the Director, Society for Policy Studies, New Delhi. Served in the Indian Navy till 2007 for 37 years. He was associated with Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis from 1990, served as Deputy Director from 1996 to 2004, and an officiating Director of IDSA from 2004 to 2005. Later was appointed as Secretary to the Government of India's Task Force and Global Strategic Developments. He retired in 2007. He worked as an editor of Maritime Affairs and Strategic Analysis, currently serving on the editorial board of Contemporary Security Policy. Edited books on nuclear, maritime, and international security related issues, and contributed over 60 research articles to reputed journals both in India and abroad. US Naval Institute Proceedings, Studies in Conflict and Terrorism, and the Bulletin in Atomic Scientists, and in books published by the US Naval War College and Royal Naval Defense Studies. Currently, he is a life member of United States Institute, a member of advisory panel of the Indian Habitat Center in New Delhi, chairman of the Middle East Institute in New Delhi, director of National Maritime Foundation, and a frequent lecturer at the Indian National Defense College, including other military colleges. He regularly writes columns for some of the country's leading English publications, such as the Indian Express, Reuters, Dainik Jagat, and Economic Times, and several alike. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation to address our participants and attendees. Now I am going to introduce with another columnist and panelist today, Shri Professor A. Prasanna Kumar. He is a founder director of Center for Policy Studies, Visakhapatnam, which completes 25 years on Gandhi Jayanti, October 2, 2020. Prasanna Kumar is a retired professor of politics and former rector of Andhra University, who, as the head of the Center for Policy Studies, brings out a bi-monthly bulletin, the 43rd issue of which was released on June 2 this year. The first publication of Center for Policy Studies on street children was released by Dr. Abid Hussain, former ambassador to the USA. And the second publication, titled Emancipation Before Empowerment, a study of women's problems, was released on August 6, 1999 by former Prime Minister of India, Shri P.V. Narasimha Rao. More than 220 meetings and seminars have been organized by Center for Policy Studies during the last 24 years and 8 months. Prasanna Kumar was a co-author of the book Years of Power, P.V. Narasimha Rao, a study, edited by Narendra Reddy and published in 1993. Prasanna Kumar's first book was Dr. B. Pattavi Sitaramaya, the Congress historian in 1978. Prasanna Kumar was All India Radio's sports broadcaster from 1964 to 2003, almost 40 years, having done commentaries on more than 10 Davis Cup matches in India, badminton commentary in Asiad 82, and national and zonal cricket matches. He was a columnist for Indian Express and Deccan Chronicle AP editions. Now, I request all the participants and attendees, please go through the views of the today's panelists on the contributions of P.V. Narasimha Rao garu. Now, over to Commodore C. Uday Bhaskar garu. Sir, you can.
Thank you, Dr. Suleiman. But before I start, I want to acknowledge Professor Prasanna Kumar and his own contribution and really request him whether he wants to say a few words before I make my remarks. So Prasanna Kumar garu, if you want to say a few words, I will follow you.
Uday Bhaskar garu, you are a very good opening batsman. I'll follow you. Kindly go
Okay.
ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. So good morning to everybody, whoever is part of this webinar panel on the centenary celebrations of late Shri P.V. Narasimha Rao garu, very, very illustrious Prime Minister of India. I hope everybody can hear and the audio is okay. If there is any problem, I'm just reading out those who are introducing themselves. Dr. Nayak, I hope audio is okay for everyone and the video. If it is not, please let us know. We can increase the lights or whatever. So I shall proceed on the assumption that everything is okay.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So first of all, let me thank Prasanna Kumar garu and Dr. Suleiman for inviting me to be part of this panel. And I think this is a extremely valuable opportunity for us under the banner of the CPS in Visakhapatnam to be able to recall and place in context the contribution of Narasimha Rao garu, and for purposes of brevity, I shall refer to him as PVNR without any disrespect. Now, just as background, Professor Prasanna Kumar and I have been in touch over the last few months, and when the government of Telangana announced the launch of the one-year celebration to recall PVNR as the start of a year-long celebration, I personally, along with I'm sure many people in India, we were all very gratified. Mainly because when Shri PVNR passed away, it was very sad that in Delhi, the capital, he was not given the kind of, I would say, farewell that would have been appropriate for a man of his stature, but it was also related to a very complicated political background that prevailed, and in a way, I think that was the cross that he had carried for many years in his life. So for me personally, one second, I've got an input that my light has to be adjusted. Please forgive me, I'll just adjust the light. Somebody has sent a message from the USA. Just a minute. Give me a second. I'm bringing a lamp. I hope this is better, USA. Whoever had sent that input. May I proceed?
Yeah, proceed, sir.
Thank you. I've got a message saying perfect. Thank you. So let me pick up saying that when he passed away in Delhi, I, like many other citizens of India, we were anguished that he was not given the farewell that he deserved. And therefore, when I opened the newspapers a few weeks ago, a few days ago, and saw the front page announcement in most of the major dailies announcing the centenary, I was very gratified. I felt finally we were acknowledging his contribution in the public domain. And I happened to speak to Professor Prasanna Kumar Garu, and CPS, I think, has very kindly enabled this interaction. So that is the first broad point why I'm so happy about this event. Whatever I have to say, I would like to place this on record that I consider myself a student of India's security studies, foreign policy, and strategic culture. And this is a broad, spectrum of subjects in which I have been trying to understand the Indian experience. So I see myself as a student. And I would say that Mr. Narasimha Rao's contribution in terms of India's strategic orientation and India's achievements in terms of the foreign policy and security domain, apart from economic liberalization, for which he is very well known. He and Dr. Manmohan Singh are acknowledged as the architects of the economic liberalization of India. That is a completely different subject. It is not my domain. So I will only make a brief reference to that. My own remarks are really related to his contribution, which I felt was not adequately acknowledged or recognized in terms of stabilizing India, if I could use that term, at a very critical stage in India's own evolution. As the Prime Minister, he played, I would say, an invaluable role in ensuring that India was able to ride that storm. It was almost like a tsunami, not just a storm, when the Cold War had ended. But let me come back to that later. So first of all, I'm making my remarks more as a student who is still understanding Mr. Rao and India's own, I said, various aspects of its evolution. I have benefited considerably over the years because I think when Mr. Narasimha Rao was Prime Minister, I was in the Institute of Defense Studies and Analysis, first as a researcher, later as the Deputy Director. And in those years, one had distant interaction with him because he was the president of the institute. And when I took over as the Deputy Director, he had become the former president of IDSA. And therefore, we used to be in touch on certain matters as an institute. But after he passed away, I think I started reading more about him and his work and spoke to some of the key players who were aware of many of the radical things that he had embarked upon. And also the areas where people have been critical of him, whether it is about Babri Masjid or what happened in 1984 when Mrs. Indira Gandhi was assassinated. So I tried to study him fully. And here I want to acknowledge the book, the definitive book on Mr. Narasimha Rao by Vinay Sitapati, who is professor now in one of the universities in Delhi. So I want to place on record his contribution as a biographer. But apart from that, in terms of policy relevance, because my interest was about policy and what has not been adequately studied, I want to acknowledge the inputs I have received over the years from Ambassador Shyam Saran, who had worked as a joint secretary when Mr. Rao was Prime Minister. By the way, Ambassador Saran has written about this recently in one of the newspapers when the centenary was announced. Those of you who have an interest can see that. Also, Dr. Sanjay Baru. I think this audience, whoever is here on the webinar today, needs no introduction to Dr. Baru. He is a son of the soil between Rajahmundry and Hyderabad. He has worked extensively. His father was someone who knew Mr. Narasimha Rao. So as a result, I could get a few insights. So I want to place that on record. And a few academics. By the way, this list is very short. There are many others I don't want to list, including my former boss, Mr. K. Subramanian, who is no more with us. Among the academics who had interacted with Mr. Narasimha Rao at different points in his life, when he was in Andhra as Chief Minister, about which I think Professor Prasanna Kumar would shed more light, but definitely when he was in Delhi and he had gone abroad occasionally, I recall some very valuable conversations when I had gone to the US with Professor Harold Gould. Some of you may know of him. He was also well known in the anthropology, sociology circles. And Professor Savitri Vishwanathan, who is a Japanese language expert. She was in Delhi University for many years, and she had accompanied Mr. Narasimha Rao as Prime Minister to Japan. So these were all, I would say, people who shared their insights, and that is how I have a greater and richer understanding of Mr. Rao. So this is the background. Let me make the following broad observations about my own appreciation of Mr. Narasimha Rao, and I'll be happy to be corrected if I have made an error of judgment in my assessment. But I have written about this when he passed away, and at that time, the statesman very kindly gave me a fair amount of space to recall Mr. Narasimha Rao and his contribution. More recently, I've written in a few places, and the word that comes to mind is that how do you describe a Prime Minister of India, considering that we have had a long trajectory from Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru to Mr. Narendra Modi now? All of them will be assessed by history as and when they finish their own watch, as we would say in the Navy, when they finish their time in office. And when I look back at Prime Ministers who have demitted office from Pandit Nehru to Dr. Manmohan Singh, I would say that personally, this is my personal assessment, that Mr. Narasimha Rao would be in my list the most consequential Prime Minister of India, and I would place him in the same league as Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. There is no equivalence. It is a case of correspondence, meaning that each of them was entrusted with the responsibility of leading a democratic nation at a certain point in history. So I think we should not ignore the context. And therefore, this is not about giving any rating and saying that Pandit Nehru is at a certain number and Mr. Rao is at a different number. No, I'm just saying as a description that they were both very consequential. And given the nature of the challenge that they were dealing with as prime ministers of a democracy, in the case of Pandit Nehru, it was a nascent democracy that was still evolving. In the case of Mr. Narasimha Rao, the observation that I had done, or what I would like to underline actually, is that in 1991, he was a very unlikely choice for prime minister. I won't go into the political background, but for the Congress, the transition from Rajiv Gandhi to Narasimha Rao was complex, contradictory, duplicitous. There were all kinds of reasons why Mr. Narasimha Rao became the prime minister. After we had the interregnum of non-Congress prime ministers, Mr. VP Singh, Mr. Chandrasekhar, Gujral, Devagowda, etc., etc. Sorry, I'm mixing up the sequence, but what I'm saying is that between Rajiv Gandhi and Mr. Narasimha Rao, we had other prime ministers who had short tenures. But when Mr. Rao became prime minister in 91, India was facing its most serious domestic crisis along multiple fronts. The first was the political crisis. As I said, for the Congress, the loss of Mr. Rajiv Gandhi was a terrible shock. They did not have a leader whom they could repose their faith in. It was very, very fractured. There were lots of cliques, lots of factions, and Mrs. Sonia Gandhi had not quite emerged as the credible president for the party. In between, of course, you know that we had the prime ministerships of Mr. VP Singh and Mr. Chandrasekhar, which were not very long in terms of their tenures. And there was a certain social unrest that was building in the country, which I would say in a summary form, without going into detail, contributed by what we now recall as the Mandal effect. You'll recall we had the Mandal Commission and its own report, what it did to the country at that time. And the beginning of the Masjid movement, which peaks in December 1992, when Babri Masjid is demolished. But the undercurrent is there. So this is the social churning that is taking place, which has a political manifestation. And concurrently, India was facing its most serious and grave economic and fiscal crisis. The balance of payment, the fact that we had no credible standing and we had to lift our gold out of India, which is one of the lowest points in India's own financial history. And along with that, we had a very complex global environment, which is that the Cold War was reaching its last stage, but few people knew how exactly it would end. All that we were aware of is that in 1991 January, the United States had carried out what they called a successful war for Kuwait. If you recall, Iraq had invaded Kuwait, and the United States had very emphatically carried out a military victory in January of 1991. And there was turbulence in the global level because the Soviet Union was on its last legs, but nobody in Washington knew, nobody in Moscow knew, no analyst at that time, or no, shall we say, people working in IR were able to anticipate that the Cold War would soon end in the most anomalous way, which is that in December of 1991, because of initiatives taken by President Gorbachev, you see the unraveling, literally the unraveling of the former Soviet Union, which takes place in December of that year. And Mr. Rao assumed office as Prime Minister with this turbulence, this churning, and to make matters even more complex for him, he was leading a minority government. It's not as if he had an overwhelming majority. Neither did he have the full support of his own party, because most of his time he was dealing with detractors in his own party. All this is hindsight. I don't think I was personally aware at that time, neither with many other people working with him. It is just that the situation evolved in this way and we could dot the I's and cross the T's only later. We also had a very complex security challenge for India, meaning the 1991 period is the beginning of the proxy war that Pakistan had encouraged against India. And because of Afghanistan, the Soviet withdrawal, and the Mujahideen turning towards this side, we had a complex challenge in the terrorism issue. We also had a complex internal security issue, not only in J&K, but also in Punjab. So I'm just drawing attention to the gravity of the national challenges which the Prime Minister of India had to address. So the reason I use the word consequential, and other commentators have said this, I'm not the only one, that in political science, in IR, international relations, when we are reviewing a leader of a country, whether it is Churchill in World War II, Roosevelt in the US, or Stalin in the former Soviet Union during World War II, or we talk about the Asian experience, any leader who is leading a country, one of the metrics that is used about their own contribution and how history will assess them is what was the state of their own country before they assumed office, and what kind of a country did they leave when they demitted office, in terms of every aspect of national identity, national capability, national values, societal cohesion, every aspect, environment, you name it, the buck stops with the leader. You can have a democratic leader like Mr. Narasimha Rao in India. You can have an autocratic leader like Chairman Mao in China, or any other country, big, small. And it is on this metric, because of the reasons that I have enumerated, I make the case for your consideration that Mr. Narasimha Rao would be remembered as the most consequential Prime Minister of India, because he was able to deal with multiple challenges, stabilize the internal dynamic of the country. It was his political stature and the professional support he got from people like Dr. Manmohan Singh and all the others. There were various other bureaucrats, professionals, many who came from the World Bank, world-class economists in their own right, trade experts, financial experts who were part of his team. And in hindsight, I would say that it added to his credibility. And perhaps one of the most critical visits of Prime Minister Rao was to Japan soon after he became Prime Minister. And the role played by Japan at a very critical time in enabling India's international fiscal credibility by providing certain loans. And a year later, if you remember, Prime Minister Rao also embarked upon what is called as the Look East policy, which again I think was very radical for India. I won't go into the detail, I'll leave it to the others. He also ensured that we could normalize our relationship with Israel. He also was able to speak to the United States, which had been very critical of India for a variety of other reasons, including the nuclear issue. And here I'm very grateful to Professor Harold Gould for sharing some of his insights about that relationship. He was able to stabilize the relationship with Moscow, which had become Russia under then President Boris Yeltsin. None of this was easy. There were enormous challenges. Neither was the internal security situation easy. Whether it was J&K, whether it was Punjab, or it was Babri Masjid and post Babri Masjid. But notwithstanding whatever be his omissions, and I'm not saying that there were no omissions, there would have. Any prime minister of any country would have a track record which would have the positives and some which would be deemed to be negative. I still maintain, and I want to put my head on the block here and say that when we have an objective assessment of history, Shri P.V. Narasimha Rao would be remembered as being among the most consequential Prime Minister of India. So let me stop here. I was given time till 12 o'clock and I would address other issues depending on what the Professor Prasanna Kumar and Dr. Suleiman advise. I hope all the members who are on the web link are able to hear and see. Otherwise, please send in a message and we can read it and we can make the necessary correction, whether it's light or sound or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm done. Suleiman and Kumar
yes,
Garu, Prasanna Kumar Garu, I'm finished.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, sir. And I think you can come again join after Prasanna Kumar sir's views. And sir, all the attendees are attentive, no issue. And around the limit is 100. Now all 100 participants are there. Okay.
My
Now
God, that's very good for CPS. Fantastic.
Yes, sir. And now I request Professor A. Prasanna Kumar sir and to give his views on P.V. Narasimha Rao. Over to Prasanna Kumar sir.
Dr. Suleiman, Commodore Uday Bhaskar Garu, and friends, Namaste. My first duty is to thank my former student who remembers me with great affection for asking me to join in this very interesting academic exercise. I believe in a norm that a teacher, if he's a good teacher, I'm trying to be one, should never say no to a student who makes a request. From Delhi or whether it is from your own place. I'm thankful to Dr. Suleiman. Thank you very much. I'm really privileged to share this with Commodore Uday Bhaskar Garu, who for more than 20 years has been a source of strength and support to the small organization we run in Vizag called the Center for Policy Studies. Commodore Uday Bhaskar has a very large heart, very sharp mind, and he has always been generous whenever I approached him to address the center. Right from 1998 till date, he has never ever said no to me. I'm thankful to him, and he is an extraordinarily courteous person. Thank you, Commodore Uday Bhaskar Garu. It's a great pleasure. Now, I must crave the indulgence of the distinguished gathering. My getting acquainted with Shri P.V. Narasimha Rao Garu was under very peculiar circumstances. Like most people who met him for the first time, I also had a little bit of disappointment. It was in 1978 that my first book, A Political Study of Dr. B. Pattabhi Sitaramaiah, a Gandhian, Congress historian. Mahatma Gandhi used to like Dr. Pattabi. Dr. Pattab Sitaramaya was a stalwart freedom fighter. I wrote a book on him, and that book, with a foreword by another former Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, Dr. B. Gopal Reddy, that book was to be released at the university. Sri P.V. Narasimha Rao Garu was in Vizag. He was a persona non grata, just a member of parliament. It was in 1978. So I was advised by my colleague and head of the department, Dr. Chandrasekhar Rao, to go and invite Sri P.V. Narasimha Rao Garu to the function. So I went and called on him and said, "Sir, we're releasing a book on Congress historian. We'll be grateful for your presence at the function." He was not at all very keen. He said, "I'm very busy with party work." He was staying in a very small, little known guest house after being the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh. Mr. Rao was a very simple man, and he was not keen to attend the function. So we started the function, and to everybody's surprise, he walked in to the assembly hall of the university, a very huge hall. And as he walked in, there was a little bit of excitement. We invited him onto the dais, and I made bold to quote the famous M. Chalapathi Rao, another stalwart Andhra journalist, editor of National Herald, and a great friend of Jawaharlal Nehru. It was Chalapathi Rao who said, "Andhra in general did not get the attention they deserved or the recognition they deserved from Delhi, especially from the Congress High Command." And Dr. Gopal Reddy was very happy when I quoted this. He said, "In the case of Dr. Pattabhi Sitaramaya," Mr. Chalapathi Rao said, "national honor did not equal national renown. That is the tragedy of Andhra politics." When I said this, I thought it was a very innocuous statement. I did not know that Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao was very upset by what I said. He flew into a rage, and for 25 minutes, he spoke brilliantly, as he always did, raising questions about politics and public life, recognition and honor. Why do people join politics? Only to get honor, to get recognition? And it was a very powerful reply from Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao. It was kind of rebuttal of what I said. Little did I know that he would become 15 years later, 13 years later, the Prime Minister of India, and I would be invited to be a co-author of a biography on P.V. Narasimha Rao, Years of Power, that was published in 1993. And that really set me on the job. Went to several places in the state, collected some material, went to Hyderabad, and Dr. G. Ram Reddy, then the chairman of the University Grants Commission, and a valued friend, he was very keen that the book should be published in 1993. And the book was published in Delhi, and P.V. Narasimha Rao did not attend the function, though. It was on P.V. Narasimha Rao, Years of Power, and I did about 4 chapters in the book, which was edited by Mr. Narendra Reddy. That was one side of the story. Then, very importantly, P.V. Narasimha Rao's career was an unusually interesting career. By the time he was 50, he was for 10 years a minister, 15 years a legislator, and a chief minister by 50, having held different portfolios. What was particularly interesting about Mr. Narasimha Rao was any subject that was assigned to him, for instance, in the beginning, he was given a little known portfolio like prisons and law. It was not a particularly attractive portfolio. But then Mr. Narasimha Rao studied in depth the condition of prisoners, and then he, for the first time in India, if I'm not wrong, created the open air jail system, obtained 1,600 acres of land in Anantapur. Not only that, open air jail system for prisoners, in which they were taught lessons and training in vocational skills. That was an initiative which was widely appreciated. Another interesting thing, though not a very important thing at the time, was the Telugu speaking people are generally considered to be emotional. At the time, they were rocked by a particular incident. The Bhadrachalam shrine, famous Sri Rama shrine, the sanctum sanctorum of the shrine suffered a crack following an earthquake. And Lord Rama of Bhadrachalam, very popular deity for Telugu speaking people, was kept in a shed because the sanctum sanctorum had to be rebuilt. And as it always happens, there were two sides. Two controversial positions were taken. One group of leaders said, no, the whole structure must be rebuilt, not on the lines on which Ramdas had built it. Bhakta Ramdas, the famous 17th century devotee of Lord Rama, built it. It should be rebuilt, it should be made more spacious so that more devotees can sit inside. And the others said, no, it cannot be like that, because Ramdas was a very great saint, and whatever he built, that should be retained. There should be no changes. And so P.V. Narasimha Rao, at the time, his portfolio was changed to religious endowments. Not an attractive assignment at all. The first thing he did was to study the condition of archakas, the priests. He revised their salaries. And then to solve this problem, Narasimha Rao had the wonderful idea of the most respected seal of those times, the Kanchi Mahaswami, Chandrasekharendra Saraswati. He went to Kanchi Mahaswami and asked him for his advice and guidance. The Mahaswami said, you cannot alter the structure built by Ramdas. Whatever structure he built, that should be retained, that should be rebuilt. And with this very powerful message from the most respected seer, P.V. Narasimha Rao came, the temple was put to rest. And the temple was rebuilt on the lines in which Ramadas built it. Now, at that particular point of time, nobody thought that Narasimha Rao would go to Delhi. Commodore Uday Bhaskar pointed out the crucial decade. I'm reminded of the famous speech he made on March 1st, 1980, before the non-aligned summit. And he made a very powerful speech when the non-aligned meeting was taking place. All of you know, Narasimha Rao between 1980 and 1988, he had a number of important portfolios. Minister for HRD, Minister for External Affairs, Minister for Defense, Minister for Home, and two great tragedies took place during the time. And he was capable of taking any amount of insult and humiliation from any side. That was something extraordinary about him. And time, he made a very important statement. When somebody went and said, you're tackling so many issues and you have so many things on your agenda. What is the philosophy of your life? Nasmarov very interestingly said, my philosophy is to create a climate of agreement. My approach is always through consensus. Consensus is an extraordinarily important word in the political lexicon. The word was contributed to India's political culture by one of the greatest South Indian leaders who could have become the Prime Minister of India, K. Kamaraj. It was K. Kamaraj who hit upon a wonderful plan, really wonderful, innovative plan. When India was in crisis, following two great crises for the sudden death of Jawaharlal Nehru on May 27, 1964, and death of Lal Bahadur Shastri on January 10, 1966. On both the occasions, the great Kamaraj stepped in, and the beauty about Kamaraj's style of functioning was he did not know Hindi, could not speak in English, and only one word he used to always say, Vakadam, Vakadam, we'll see. And Kamaraj evolved a wonderful concept that became a backbone of Indian political culture. And that became the source of inspiration for a very good book on political science, Two Successions, by Professor Michael Brescia. Consensus is India's contribution to the political lexicon. And that was Nasmarov's approach. I think Mr. Rao borrowed it from Kamaraj. And all of us know that P.V. Narasimha Rao was a great admirer of Jawaharlal Nehru. He almost adored Jawaharlal Nehru. And he admired Mrs. Gandhi. And Natwar Singh wrote a beautiful line. Only Natwar Singh could write so well. There was nothing common between Narasimha Rao and Jawaharlal Nehru, except that both of them were intellectuals. Nehru had a temper, P.V. had a temperament, he said. That's why P.V. Narasimha Rao came to be regarded as a man who tried to walk in the footsteps of Jawaharlal Nehru with a temperament and with a very good sense of history, learning from the mistakes of others. When you talk about Rao as a state leader, let me also tell you, he was a young minister, a very young chief minister. On the opposition benches, there were stalwart communist leaders like Puchalapalli Sundaraya, Tarimal Nayareddy, Akineni Basavaponnaya, Vavilala Gopalakrishnaya, Thinneti Vishwanatham, Gandhians, communists, all of them highly knowledgeable people. And Narasimha Rao began to learn from them many lessons very quietly. That is why when somebody said Narasimha Rao was very slow in taking decisions, Gandhian Vavilala Gopalakrishnaya, one of the most respected Gandhians in Andhra politics and public life, he once made a comment, Narasimha Rao does take time. He cannot come to a quick decision. I accept that. He studies a subject in depth, but when he takes a decision, it is always the right decision. That was what Vavilala Gopalakrishnaya said. And I think it was true to a large extent. So, coming to the other thing, he was given the portfolio of human resource development and then the national education policy, 1986. And he said a very important statement, it was, education can no longer be neglected by the union government. It's a national responsibility. That was a profoundly important subject. And I think that was another area where Narasimha Rao made significant contribution, promotion of value-based education. In his words, for instance, he understood India very well. He had great admiration for India. He had great admiration for Jawaharlal Nehru's discovery of India. How many times he read, he said, I have read it several times. I still learned something by reading Jawaharlal Nehru's discovery of India. And Natwar Singh very humorously said, P.V. Narasimha Rao did not have to discover India because he knew India. Narasimha Rao in his early life, he stood first in school and stood first in LLB examination from Nagpur University, and was influenced by a Sanskrit scholar by name Garlapati Raghavar, who taught him the importance of reading classics in Telugu and Sanskrit. So Narasimha Rao had the gift of learning all languages, and he also had the courage to disagree with stalwarts. I have no time, but it's worth mentioning that he translated Jnanpith Award Vishwanath Satyanarayana's Veyi Padagalu into Hindi, Sahasrabhan. But then he disagreed with Vishwanath Satyanarayana on the stage once and made the great poet angry. Narasimha Rao was willing to cross swords with anybody quietly and appearing to be at the same time very courteous and very well mannered. So Narasimha Rao, for that matter, covered a very broad spectrum. Commodore Uday Bhaskar was referring to Gorbachev and Reagan. That was a very important decade in international relations. All of us know, for that matter, Ronald Reagan dominated the decade. Dominated the decade with his eloquence. He was also called the Texan president because any criticism would not stick to him. He was so popular. That was also the decade in which Soviet was undergoing a tremendous transition, the decline of Russia and the rise of America. During that time, Narasimha Rao went and addressed the General Assembly, 35th session, made a famous speech in which he said, there cannot be any asymmetry in global politics. We believe in democratization. We believe in equality of small countries and big countries. And this is how Narasimha Rao talked about. I'm reminded of a very famous speech Jawaharlal Nehru made at Columbia University in 1949, talking about non-alignment. It was a brilliant lecture, which, as expected, the Americans did not like, because Nehru, according to them, was preachy. The same words, the same inspiration was provided by Narasimha Rao when he addressed the 35th session of the General Assembly in 1980. And I'm reminded of his famous statement, the greatness of India. Look at the greatness of India. He was telling the Indians also, he was telling the foreigners also, what is great about India? You have a multi-religious society and you are creating a secular state. You have people who are not only from diverse cultures, but often divided. Look at the contradiction. There's a dialectical process. Narasimha Rao underscored this point. There's a dialectical process. Divided people, but united politically, socially, and culturally. And then we are harnessing technology for the promotion of people's welfare, for improving development in an intensely agricultural country. So combining technology with agriculture, combining traditional values with modern techniques, combining the wisdom of ancient India with the technology of modern times, Narasimha Rao was indeed one of the architects. But then few people expect, he was not a very impressive person in the sense he would socialize. He would not talk to people. I once quoted at a particular function, I gave your indulgence for a small joke that Narasimha Rao's hidden sense of humor would reveal. Narasimha Rao had a hidden sense of humor too. As Natwar Singh said, he always smiled without a smile. That's an art. He always smiled without a smile. One incident that comes to mind is, it is well known that Mr. Eric Gonzalez, the foreign secretary, his wife's name was Rose. During that hectic period, when Narasimha Rao, Natwar Singh, Gonzalez were all busy, came the chairman of the European Commission, Gaston Thorn, THO Gaston Thorn. When Thorn visited India, they had to do more work. They had to do more of protocol. Narasimha Rao, without smiling, he said to Eric Gonzalez, Eric, every day you have the rose, but today you have the thorn too. That was gastro. So it seems Eric smiled heartily, and as Natwar Singh would say, Narasimha smiled without a smile. There was something extraordinary about it. A few points and questions that I will take later. But let me mention in this context that Narasimha Rao strengthened the Human Resource Development Ministry, value-based education. And at that time, we were particularly happy as teachers because our salaries were revised. Though credit went to Rajiv Gandhi for doing it, the man behind that was revision of pay scales of school teachers, university professors, all that was done during his time. So he was a great friend of the academia. I still remember one particular line. I would sign off by mentioning that. He came to the Andhra University and addressed a packed gathering at the University Assembly Hall. He was foreign minister then. And he began in a brilliant note. He said, I'm quoting him, if a foreign minister is seen too often at home and home minister abroad, it is not good for any democracy. And then he went on speaking for 1 hour on India's foreign policy, non-alignment. That was a kind of a lesson to all of us. I shall get back to again after Mr. Suleiman permits me. If I have time, if I have no time, it's okay. Thank you, Dr. Suleiman. I'll be happy to come back.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. In fact, the same tone, the same oration, and I'm experiencing here. When I heard your class between 1984 and 86, thank you very much for your thorough and in-depth information about P. Avinash Rao sir. So now, I request Uday Bhaskar Garu to give one or two policies, the pragmatic foreign policy across our western and eastern shores, other than Japan. I think Japan already told us.
Suleiman Garu, I have two minor technical points to make.
Okay.
The audio is not coming through as clearly. I don't know about the other panelists. So you want to just quickly ask if the audio, I mean, it's coming in uneven way to me. I don't know about the others. Is there any technical thing we have to fix or it's all right?
No, it's all right, sir. It's all right.
Because, you know, if you can hear me and the others can hear me, then I'll proceed.
Yeah. I'm hearing very clearly. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Then I will just I'll literally take 2 minutes so that our guests are able to either make comments or ask questions.
Yeah.
Number one, I would say personally that if you look at the security domain,
sir,
Prime Minister Narasimha Rao's decision to establish relations with Israel, I would underline that as a very, very important decision because it was a political decision that had significant security implications for India, as we saw, for instance, during the Kargil war. But that's only an illustration. I don't want to make a direct link between Israel and Kargil, but just to say that in recognizing Israel, Prime Minister Rao had enabled India's own security capabilities, not just because of the military inventory supply, but also because of the space it created in relation to West Asia, Middle East, etc. That's one. Secondly, as I said, I often felt that not enough acknowledgement has been given, or no, I mean, this part has not been recognized, that he actually embarked upon the strategic liberalization of India, not just economic. Meaning, till 91, India's own relationship was in a slightly reactive defensive mode in relation to the Cold War, non-alignment, Kashmir. These were the priorities. And we had entered into a certain dependency with the former Soviet Union for a variety of reasons. We were estranged from the United States in a very bitter way. So much so, if you remember, between Nixon and Kissinger, they used the most unparliamentary language to refer to Mrs. Indira Gandhi when she was Prime Minister. And that's an indication, I would say, of the bitterness and the negative aspect of the relationship. I think this other very major contribution of Prime Minister Rao was, while retaining the relationship with Moscow, he was able to create a bridge with Washington at a very difficult time. Bill Clinton's leadership, the Democratic Party, was not easy for India. If you remember, as I said, 91, the Americans had won the war for Kuwait. At that time, from January 91, when they won the war, till Bush Sr. demitted office in 92, and Clinton comes in January 93, the United States had become a triumphalist power. You know, they saw themselves as having defeated the former Soviet Union. And if you remember, at that time, there used to be a phrase that it was the end of history, the Fukuyama thesis, that the United States had enabled the victory of liberal democracy, capitalism, and they felt that they had acquired a certain grasp on the nuclear deterrence issue. All of this was completely belied, of course, as events in the rest of the decade proved. But my point is that the United States was overflowing with certitude about its own contribution and profile in the world. It's not easy to deal with them. And Mr. Rao at that time, with all his limitations, no charisma, this, that, he was not a great man for public relations and propaganda and projecting himself. But I think he had a very good team in the PMO and his own closest advisors. And here somebody has pointed out, he was a linguist, he was a scholar, he was intellectually very, very deep. His address in the US Congress, I'm taking the liberty of adding to what Professor Prasanna Kumar has already said. The first time he spoke in the US, it was another, I think, illuminating speech with a lot of depth. And I would say that laid the foundation from whatever little conversations I have had with some of my counterparts in the US. So it was his ability. I often used to say in lighter vein, when after he had stepped down as Prime Minister, and there would be the odd occasion that he would sort of meet some of us, that he was like Vamana. In 3 steps, metaphorically, he was able to stabilize India in the post-Cold War in relation to USA, in relation to Russia, in relation to Middle East and East Asia. The so-called Look East policy from Japan to ASEAN. The foundation was laid by him. And here I also want to recall some of the insights and contributions shared by late Ambassador Amarnath Ram. Some of you may know him, Mr. A.N. Ram, a very, very remarkable individual, full of insights that he was willing to share. So I'm just frankly dotting the I's and crossing the T's like a note taker, because I was privileged to meet some of these people who had contributed quietly to many of these. So this is my own assessment, but let me stop here, because if you talk about P.V. Narasimha Rao, since this may be a largely Telugu-speaking audience, I remember once he gave me a small insight into Allasani Peddanna and, the whole translation that he had done of Manucharitra. It was an amazing, I would say, detour from IR and foreign policy into linguistic cadence. And, as I said, the man has so many sides. I will not detain this audience here. But Dr. Sheikh, over to you again, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And now it's a question for Shri Prasanna Kumar, sir. Sir, as you know, the former President of India, Abdul Kalam, described P.V. Narasimha Rao as a patriotic statesman who believed that nation is bigger than the political system. Please comment on that.
Actually, Dr. Kalam complimented Narasimha Rao, perhaps in the company of Atal Bihari Vajpayee.
Sure.
Because it was Vajpayee who graciously said, when the nuclear explosion took place, he said, I am not the true father of the nuclear bomb. It was actually Narasimha Rao who was the true father. And Kalam endorsed the opinion of Vajpayee. And even Mr. Rao used to say that the political system is important, but more than the political system, the country is important. One line I must say, Dr. Suleiman, I sign off. That is, when he became the Prime Minister, look at the clarity with which he mentioned the 4 important targets in his mind at a very important function. One, to create political stability. And few would take it for granted. He was incapable of providing political stability at that time, people thought. Political stability. Secondly, to revamp the economy. Thirdly, to solve the border states problems. Assam, Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab. These were 3 important areas of concern. And fourthly, to radically, in his words, to radically alter the framework of your foreign policy. I think at that particular point of time, when non-alignment was being denounced, Narasimha Rao stood by what he said and did, but at the same time, give it a new direction and a new dimension. These were the 4 important goals. And I would sign off with one last point, Dr. Suleiman, while offering my thanks to Commodore Uday Bhaskar in particular, and you for your generosity. That just remember, Dr. Manmohan Singh and P.V. Narasimha Rao, in one stroke, achieved 3 things. Ending the monopoly of public sector undertakings. Number 2, limiting the growth of private business at the expense of public welfare. And 3, bringing about changes in foreign policy. We're passing through many periods, including globalization and all that. Fine-tune foreign policy in consonance with, that is why Mr. Narasimha Rao himself said, too many uncertainties for the Prime Minister. In September 1991, 2 months after he took charge as Prime Minister, he said, the problem is to cope with too many uncertainties in the fast-changing world and alter a foreign policy framework accordingly. Thank you. I hope I have answered the question.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I think before close the session, and Sir Uday Bhaskar, sir, would you like to share anything?
No, I think, we should give a chance to all the people who have joined, at least to send their names or say hello, because they have very patiently heard us.
Yeah.
We should at least allow them to type their questions or comments. That
Yeah,
would be,
in
I
fact,
suppose, if that's
in
okay
fact,
by you, Dr. Suleiman.
Yeah. In fact, I think very few questions.
I'm just reading 1 minute.
Yeah.
This is
Go
from
ahead.
Dr. Gopi.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's gone off. Meer
Right.
chodandi. I just saw something from Roshni in class 4.
Yeah. Just I'm coming, sir. Just a minute.
But if we have a constraint of time, Suleiman Garu, I
Sir.
will just sort of, I think, thank all of them for being with us.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that we are not able to hear them. But if if Professor Prasanna Kumar agrees, they
Sir.
can send their emails to CPS.
Yeah.
And
In
if
fact,
time permits, we can, give them
Yeah,
a
in fact-
reply or whatever. So in the interest of time, I will also thank CPS, Prasanna Kumar Garu, and you, Dr. Suleiman, for
thank you, sir.
giving me this opportunity.
Sir.
And to all the people who have joined in. Meer annaru kada 100 people vacharani. I
Yeah,
think
no.
it is very, very significant that
Yeah.
100 people have joined from all
100
over the world.
Yeah,
to be
100
part of
potential.
this. So I will also sign off and say namaskaram. Namaskaram.
Yeah. In fact, I requested all the participants and attendees to send their mails to sulaimansheikh@gmail.com, and then I will send all the mails to CPSC, Center for Policy Studies, for getting feedback. And once again, thank you very much, sir, Uday Bhaskar garu. And in fact, I think in future we may go for other topics. I think I'm willing to organize some more webinar programs. Thank you, sir, Prasanna Kumar garu, for
Thank you.
spending time and instead of your busy schedule and other things, and you spared time. I'm very happy, and it's our maiden webinar on webinar Suras, the
Thank you. Thank you.
celebration. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks once again.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Yeah, I upload in the YouTube also the whole recorded, and I upload in the YouTube also. I will share you the link also. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Sorry.